My name is Yvette Cabrera, and I am a librarian here in the International Languages Department of the Los Angeles Public Library. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's Your Author series featuring Malaka Gharib to discuss her book, I Was Their American Dream. We want to thank our generous donors, the Leonard S. and Bernard A. Greenberg Fund, as well as the Library Foundation and our amazing behind-the-scenes staff for helping the library bring these author and illustrator programs to you. Thank you all so very much. We would also like to recognize and acknowledge the first people of this land. We recognize and acknowledge their elders, past and present, as well as their descendants. For information on which territory you may reside, check out native-land.ca. We will be having a question and answer portion towards the end of the program, so please save your questions and comments until then. Also, we will have an opportunity drawing to win a copy of the book, so please email us at yourauthor@lapl.org to be entered into the drawing. And now on to today's Your Author program. Malaka Gharib is a journalist, cartoonist, and graphic novelist. She is the author of I Was Their American Dream, winner of the 2020 Arab American Book Award. It won't always be like this. By day, she works as a digital editor at NPR for Life Kit, a lifestyle podcast about health, finance, relationships, and more. Her comics and writing have been published in the Los Angeles Times and the New Yorker. She has been profiled in the Washington Post as well as the New York Times. I Was Their American Dream tells the story of Malaka and her mixed heritage. Her mom is Filipino and her dad is Egyptian. After her parents split up, Malaka started spending summers in Egypt with her father, often feeling like an outsider due to how she was raised in the US in a Filipino household. Malaka's story may sound familiar to many children of immigrants that act as a bridge between cultures and navigating multiple identities at the same time. All the way from Nashville, Tennessee, let's welcome Malaka.
Hello. Thank you, Yvette, for that beautiful intro. And I really like the way that you summed up my book. I think I may copy it. You have to send that to me so I can use it.
I will send it to you.
In the future. It's like, I love that framing. I'm using it on my website.
Thank you. Thank you so much for making time to come chat with us. We're so excited to have you. Your book has been very meaningful to me, so it's very exciting for me.
Yes, thank you so much. And I've loved getting to learn about you and your Oaxacan background over the past few weeks.
Thank you. All right, so let's get started with you sharing a bit of your work so we can all dive into the book together.
Okay, I'm going to read the first chapter. Ready?
Let's do it.
Chapter 1. When I was growing up, my mom would always say, "You have to be better than us." She never explained what she meant by that, but I understood. I had to somehow rise above my parents' life in America. But how? This is a story about that journey, and it starts before I was born. My parents immigrated to this country in the early 1980s. They met in Los Angeles. They had different ideas of what they wanted their lives in the States to look like. My mom never wanted to come here, but in her home country of the Philippines in the late 1970s, there was growing civil unrest. People wanted President Ferdinand Marcos, who had declared martial law in 1972, out. "I don't know what's going to happen into this country. We got to go." That's my grandpa, Tatay, my nanay, my grandma, my Tito Ovid, my mom, my Tita Pinky, and my Tita Maro. Tatay, my grandpa, hatched a plan for the family to flee the country. One by one, he'd send each family member to America. "Call us when you get a job and find a place to live. Then we'll send your sister. I'm taking your room and the car." That's my Tita Maro. He's the youngest one. My mom, who was in her early 20s, didn't want to leave. She came from an upper middle class family, and life in Manila was easy. "Aling Auring," that's the name of the maid. "Can you tell the driver I'll be ready in an hour? And please iron my dress on the bed. Thank you." She already had an awesome job. She worked at a hotel. The guests will be arriving at 6 p.m. And everything you can get in the US, you could get in Asia. Simon and Garfunkel albums, Adidas shoes, records, Wrangler jeans, cool bags. Why would I want to come to the United States to toil away, to cook my own rice, to cook my own food, wash my own dishes? I'd have to work hard to make a living. I'd have to start from the bottom. Before she knew it, Tata told her it was time to join my uncle in America. She was totally heartbroken. They've all come to look for America. That's her in her bedroom crying. My mom had listened to America by Simon and Garfunkel 1,000 times, but had no idea where the places in the song, Michigan, Pittsburgh, were, or what they were like. Soon she'd find out. It would be 15 years until she returned to the Philippines again. My dad, on the other hand, had been scheming to get to America since high school. Growing up in Cairo in the 1970s, he was obsessed with American movies. Yallah! It means let's go in Arabic. They're going to the movies. He's watching the movie Godfather with his friends. They don't care. American movies inspired me, especially ones about New York with all the high-rise buildings and the cars and the shops and the malls. Something inside me clicked and said, yeah, this is what I want, America. Not Europe, not Australia, not Canada, not Berlin, London, Paris. I want open sky. I want America. So he told his dad, Bubba, I'm leaving Egypt and going to America. Is that okay? Go for it, my son. My dad's awesome plan to get to America. 1, get Bubba's blessing. 2, save money. 3, learn English. 4, pass the test of English as a foreign language exam. 5, apply for grad school in the US. 6, get accepted. 7, get visa. And so basically this is all his steps. And then finally he sends in his application for grad school. And then he gets this mail and they say, sir, you have a package. And he's like, oh my God. It took him over half a decade to complete his plan, but he did it. Alhamdulillah. Praise be to God in Arabic. Congratulations. You have been accepted to UCLA's School of Management. He was going to America. Just as my mom predicted, life in America was tough. She had a shift number 1 from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. at a hotel. Then she had shift number 2 from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. And then she came home at 9 p.m. and there was nothing to eat. Meanwhile, my dad was anxious to get his career started. He was determined to make it here. MBA, we'll start you out as a night manager. Yeah. That's him and my mom. My mom worked at the front desk and my dad was the manager. My dad was my mom's manager. Do you want to go watch Indiana Jones with me after work? Who, me? No, the ghost at the front desk. Who else? She liked him because he was funny, he was always dressed neatly, and he seemed smart. Oh my God, he's going to rip out his heart. They got married 6 months later and had me a year after that. Why is she so brown? Where are her blue eyes like her daddy? Oh, well, let's call her Brownie. And there they were, 2 immigrants and their American-born daughter in a strange new land. Here's me in a little umbrella stroller. They were on their way to the American dream. And to my parents, that meant a big house with a white picket fence, a 2-car garage, credit cards, luxury handbags, enough money to send back home to the parents. Woo, money, that's my nana. A Mercedes-Benz or a Lexus, annual trips to Disney World, Ralph Lauren polo shirts for the whole family. Kids that were American, but not too American. Living at home until you're married is a great way to save money. 8 p.m. is a perfectly reasonable curfew for an 18-year-old on a Friday night. Well, almost on their way. Things were tense at home. What do you think about sending our Brownie to Catholic school? My dad's reading A Guide for Muslim Parents in America. That skirt's too short. Can you wear something a little bit more modest? Ang tigas ang ulo mo. And then he's saying, intisada. They're both saying, you're stubborn in their languages. Eventually, my parents got a divorce. I moved in with my mom. My dad got a job about a 3-hour drive away, and I would see him every other weekend. For my mom, life returned to the crazy, hectic life she had before me, except now she was a single parent, juggling a full-time job and thinking for 2. Oh my gosh, Malaka, please eat so I can go to bed. My parents had so many hopes for themselves. The reality was that they were so far away from what they wanted. 25 years later, my parents would tell me that being married to each other was the closest they ever got to the American dream. Thank you. Oh, that part still kind of makes me teary.
Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. I think it's really amazing how you share such deeply personal experiences in a way that can make the reader giggle and then also cry at the same time. I go back and forth between like laughing and then wanting to cry, and that is very powerful writing. So thank you
so much.
So a question for you. You draw from your family and lived experiences to write your graphic novel. How did that come about, and how did you decide that a graphic novel would be the best way to share your story?
So, like, the only reason why I started writing about my family was because in 2016, in the lead up to Trump winning the election, I just heard so much negative rhetoric about immigrants in the media, coming from the politics of the time. And I felt like I was having a crisis. I was like, wait a second, do people like growing up in Southern California, like it's so diverse. Like I felt like I was never exposed to like those types of tensions. But like sitting in Washington, DC, where I was living at the time during in 2016, like I was just like so surprised by what people were saying and what people believed about immigrants. For example, like you know, immigrants are like begging and like fighting so hard to come to this country. Yes, but not all immigrants. Like when I think about like my mom's story, that it doesn't track. Like that narrative didn't track with me. And so so everybody during that time was thinking about what they could do to take action. And I felt the most authentic thing I could do was to share my story as my family story as like a counteraction to what I was seeing. So every time I saw something in the media, I would try to think it would be an inspiring point for me to draw a comic about it. So like, for example, when they were saying that Muslims were terrorists, I don't know why this came about. Like, I don't even remember the context, but like suddenly Muslims were terrorists all over the news. And I was like, again, this doesn't track with me. Like my dad wears jorts. Like he's not cool. Like I just like,
Yeah.
Trains and Kentucky Fried Chicken. Like it just doesn't track with me again. So like I drew a comic to sort of counteract that. And like I have always been sort of like a casual doodler. And before I think I was, honestly, I think if Instagram would let people like read like really long reads, like maybe I would have like written a beautiful essay about it, but I wanted to share something quick and of the moment, and like a doodle with like like a speech bubble seemed like the quickest way to like grab attention and like start a conversation. And so when I saw that people were like responding to that, and people were saying like, oh my gosh, my dad is from Pakistan, like he's so lame too, like why do they think that we're so scary? It's like that's when I was like, okay, like I'm gonna keep doodling. And then I had never written a graphic novel, never drawn formally, and I just sort of like doodled my little heart out for this book. And now people think of me as a cartoonist, which I think is very funny because I am not a cartoonist.
I love that though. I was listening to one of your interviews where you were saying that your dad still critiques the way you draw hands. But I love that the way to defend your family was to just create a story to defend them and like humanize them to people, to see like we're all the same, we all like the same things. So that's amazing. Thank you. Okay, another question for you. You spent summers in Egypt with your dad and the family he was creating there, because we learned in the book that he remarried and had more children. How did your summers in Egypt shape who you are today?
Wow. Yeah, that's all in my second book. It won't always be like this. That was like basically what I wanted to know is like, how did, I always hated having to go to Egypt as a young person. And what was interesting is that, again, growing up in Southern California, growing up in an immigrant community, everybody went back to the homeland during the summer. My crush Jorge went back to Mexico. My friend Vrinda went back to India. There was all my friends who were Taiwanese went back to Taipei. So very, very common of having a very long and boring summer spending with your cousins back in the home country. And I dreaded that. And I wanted to have like a normal American summer. But now as an adult looking back at that time, I think that growing up outside of the United States, like, and spending time there helped me learn how to communicate with others beyond language.
Mm-hmm.
You can connect with anyone. Like people say that I could befriend like a doorknob. Like, and it's true because like I always try to find common ground with people. Like it's like not only did I grow up in a diverse, context, I also grew up, trying to make friends with people who didn't even speak my language out of desperation. Because if I didn't make any friends, then I would have no friends the whole summer. So I learned that. And I also learned that to be respectful of other people's cultures, my dad is Muslim, and my whole entire family on that side are pretty like observant, I think is a good word. And I learned to, even though I was going through a serious punk phase during that time, I was very respectful of the rules and the codes and norms. I never thought of them as like, that's wrong. Like, you shouldn't do that. In America, we do this.
Yeah.
I knew it, and I knew that the answer, because I had been surrounded by millions of people who all see, in Egypt, like that is the norm. In Egypt, we do this. In Egypt, I wear a big t-shirt to cover my butt because that is the thing to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, like I like what you said about all of your friends going back to the motherland in the summers.
You did too, right?
Yeah, I did that every summer. I would go back to Oaxaca because in a way it was cheaper to do that than have a babysitter, sign up for summer programs and all of those things. And it's such a common thing in a place like SoCal. But like you said, when you moved to DC and noticed like, oh, it's not as diverse here. We're not all living kind of like the same summers.
Yeah.
Can we go and read page 29 of your book?
29. Okay, I'm on 29. Both pages or just one page?
Let's just do one.
Okay. Spending in time in Egypt exposed me to realities I never would have experienced in California. When I was 14, I brought my skateboard to Egypt. I'm a skater now, I told Hala. This visor is part of the look. You wear it off to the side. Okay, but do you have anything else to wear? I was stoked to skate around the mall and the neighborhood, but every time I did, people stared. At first, I thought it was just because they had never seen a skateboard before or such dank skate clothes, or maybe they were blinded by my coolness. But no, definitely wasn't that. I never brought my skateboard to Egypt again. Hey, pretty. What is she thinking? So shameful.
The first time I read this page, I was laughing so much because I identified in the way that you would go back. Like for me, for example, I would go back every summer with like a different identity. Like one year I'd be punk, the next year I'd be into something else. And I remember who I was because I would leave CDs behind or stuff from like the previous summer. And then I'd come back and I'd be like, oh, I can't believe I was into that.
Wow, that's amazing. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Okay. So another question for you, and we can reference a page in your book for that. You would often get asked, what are you? How do you answer that question now? And does it feel easier to answer that?
So I know that there was, people in the culture of immigrant kids have had varying thoughts about the what are you question. In California, where I was growing up, what are you is a really quick shorthand. If you're living in an immigrant community, it's just like, oh, you're Pakistani. Gotcha. You're not Indian. Okay. Oh, you're Indian. You're not Bangladeshi. Okay. You're from Honduras, not El Salvador. It's really, really important. Those distinctions matter because people do care about their ethnicity, right?
Yeah.
And you want to be respectful of people's backgrounds. Like, you don't want to say like, oh, you're Mexican. No, bish. I'm like Colombian. You know what I mean? It's offensive. So really, really important then to ask it. But that was in a mostly POC immigrant context, right? Mm-hmm. So, and also it was 2002 when I was growing up. So that was how the question was asked. People didn't really think twice about it. Mm-hmm. And then of course, like, moving into a white space, that question is weaponized, right? Like, people could use it to fetishize, like, ooh, you're Asian, like, I'm into Asians, I don't know, like, that sounds so gross. I'm sorry, but like, that's what people do sometimes, right? Yeah. Or like, it makes people feel othered if like white people are constantly asking them, like, what are you? I'm a human living on this planet. I'm from, like, you're actually a Filipino Egyptian. Then if I respond, like, I'm from California, if I'm like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I guess it really depends on the tone they ask it with. You can always kind of tell where they're coming from.
Yeah. And so, but now I find identity, especially, it's like I worked so hard to be able to be proud to say who, like what I am, that like I don't care like if whatever context you're asking for, like I feel like whatever you're trying to get, if the person's asking this, whatever other ulterior motive they have, like I worked too damn hard to like, I for so many years I tried to cover up my Filipino Egyptian identity, and now that I've reclaimed it, I want to scream it from the rooftops.
Yay.
And not only that, like to be Arab is like has for a very long time and still continues to be sort of like a dirty word, like a dirty like bad associations with Arab people, or like people coming from Muslim backgrounds. I'm very proud to always say that I am an Arab person, because people are like, oh, but like maybe it'll change their, especially in the South, like maybe it'll change their perceptions of what an Arab is, like, or somebody from a Muslim background is, it's like, oh, but I saw that you were eating bacon. It's like, well, like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to just I feel people become more understanding once they know someone and realize like, oh, we're the same. I feel like this book keeps bringing me back to that. Like we're all living similar experiences that are like super different, but also the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Like we're not that unique.
Well, the thing that makes me sad is that nobody really, in my generation at least, like nobody talked about race. Like I don't know about if in your generation people did it either. And I felt like it was just like a pissing contest in my high school for who could pass off the whitest or something. Or like you just didn't want to like be associated with being like Asian or whatever ethnicity you were. And like, it makes me really sad because I feel like everybody was struggling with their identity, and we would be a perfect place to talk about it, but we didn't.
Yeah. And I think tools like social media and like shows have made all the difference, because now we see different narratives.
Oh, yeah. I remember, like the first time that Aziz Ansari like went on SNL, that was actually in 2016. And that I felt like that was a turning point for like stories from immigrants. That 2016 really was the year. And I felt like I have never seen that before. I've never seen somebody who is the child of immigrants, like talking about immigrant issues, like on a national stage this big. And that's so recent. That was like, 7 years ago.
Yeah. I really like his show, Master of None, the episode where they're helping the parents figure out how to use the tablet, or like
I cried so much.
I know, that was an amazing episode. And I was like, oh my God, same. I'm always helping my parents reset passwords, access emails, and do all of those things.
I know. They worked so hard for your like ungrateful to
just be like, I'll do it later. Yeah, I'll get to it after whatever it is I have to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a great segue into my next question. So in the book, you talk about the media you were consuming as a teen and a young adult, and you talk about Felicity a lot, bands like Radiohead and PJ Harvey that were all very like white. And thankfully now we have access to many diverse shows that present different narratives. If you had access to shows like Rami, which is one of my all-time favorite shows, that show came out in April 2019. I went to Egypt October 2019 because I was so obsessed with it.
What? What was your experience like?
It was awesome. I had a great time. People were like, oh, are you sure is it safe? And I was like, I think so. I taught myself some like very basic Egyptian Arabic to be able to navigate everything. And people were always like, are you Egyptian? They thought I was Egyptian.
You look Egyptian in this context.
I feel like I'm a very ambiguous brown, that wherever there is brown people, they think I am that. Like when I went to India, I was like, are you Indian? Egypt?
Yes.
Egyptian. Peru, are you Peruvian? Like I could pass for all of the browns.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, so if you had access to shows about Rami, to those of you that haven't watched it, Rami is about a show about the son of Egyptian immigrants who is spiritually conflicted and juggling his Americanness while being Muslim. And another show, Mo, about a Palestinian refugee seeking asylum and ultimately citizenship. And I like how they, like your book, they juggle all of these themes in like with comedy, and so you go from like laughing to tears in one
Yeah.
episode. Do you think you would have been watching those shows, and would they have made a difference in your life?
Oh yeah. Gosh, I don't think I've never even thought about this question before. I think that like I think what conversation I needed to have very early on that nobody told me was that, you know, the Philippines was colonized by the Spaniards for 400 years and then imperialized by the Americans for almost 100 more. And Filipinos place light-skinned people and white people at the top of the totem pole. And so if you ever hear rhetoric about that, know that it's coming from a historical place, that know that that's not the truth of the matter, that you are awesome how you are, and that this is just like a framing device that has like sort of been in place for a long time and is not true and real. I wish somebody had like given me that history. And there's actually programs now for Filipino adolescents to learn history, their like colonial history, so they can decolonize themselves early. So I wish I could have just decolonized myself early on and knowing my history about the Filipinos. Second thing about, in Egypt and or in the Arab world, there's a lot of like racism towards dark-skinned Arabs, and there's a lot of dark-skinned indigenous people, like Nubians, for example, living in Egypt. Yeah. And I think that also learning that and understanding that history and context. But unfortunately, growing up in the United States, I don't get to learn Filipino history, Egyptian history. You know what I mean? Like Americans get to learn about not Americans, white Americans get to learn about, white American history. And that is reflective of like, okay, like we came from Plymouth Rock or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not the reality of my history. So I wish I would have learned my history and like learned that early on, and then I would have been a different person. The second thing that I think would have made a difference is like those stories, seeing stories of people like myself would have like normalized very, very simple things. Like you can be attracted to people in your race. That is perfectly fine. And that is perfectly okay. And you don't have to force yourself to like white people, because you think that those are the popular people, right. And liking somebody carries a lot of other things with it. Liking somebody, if you want a person who's white to be attracted to you, for example, as a woman, you're going to change the way that you look to be more presentable to him. You're going to change your interests. You're going to change the topic of conversation, the things that you consume, so that you'll be more attractive to that person, so that it sort of alters the whole chemistry of your person. So anyways, I could go on and on about this, but
yeah. Right. Thank you for that. Another question. I read somewhere that you use your actual journals as inspiration. And if we can take a look at that.
Oh, yes.
So here in your book, we can see inserts of your actual journals, which is really cool that you shared that. Yes. Can you tell us a bit about your creative process?
Yes, I can actually show you my journals as well.
Oh, awesome.
I should have just showed them to you. Here we go. So this is my journal from when I was in high school.
Wow.
It says, "High school sucks."
Of course.
I think I'm frozen. Diary of an American Teen by Malaka Gharib.
Love that.
So anyway, like it just like, I think I'm like freezing. Hold on. Am I frozen?
You're good.
Oh, okay. Okay, here we go. So this is what it looked like. So I was always doodling and stuff. See, drawing.
Yeah.
This guy was really cute at school.
Ooh.
See him?
Yeah.
I was a homecoming princess in that picture. Yeah, so like this had like tons of like anecdotes and stories and like comics I drew as well. You know, and so I just like basically stole all of my ideas in here, and I tried. It was easy for me to like pick up the tone of my my high school self too, to make my voice sound really authentic.
Yeah. I still feel like a high schooler sometimes, so it wouldn't be hard to pick that voice right now. Okay, and thank you for sharing your journal with us.
You're welcome. It's always fun to show that.
In your book, you share that you eventually marry a white Southern guy.
Yeah, the very, very white. Yes.
And you have this really cool page, if we can take a look at that, where you show similarities between Egyptians, Filipinos, and Southerners. And now that you live in Tennessee, have you found any more similarities? Let's read that page. So, let's see.
Yes, I'm going to read the page. All right. When I thought about it, Southerners were a lot like Filipinos and Egyptians. Religion was very important. They are very generous and hospitable. Take another biscuit. Take another lumpia. Take another falafel. Look, I made a lumpia falafel sandwich. They have a good sense of humor. Darren's granddaddy. Help, there's a strange man attacking me. It's just me, dear. Darren's grandmother.
I love that you don't have to go that far to find people that are just like you, that like within the States and the South, you're like, wait, we're all kind of the same.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I think, so what was your original question?
Oh, have you found any more similarities now that you live there, between your Filipino background and your Egyptian background?
Yeah. I don't know if I did. I don't know if I did.
That's okay. That's okay.
I just keep learning more and more about how unique and interesting and an interesting Southern culture is. There's just so much. I think that Southern culture gets a very, very bad rap on in the zeitgeist. I think people think that, I don't know. You know the stereotypical idea of like what a Southerner is. I'm not going to like repeat the stereotype, but like
you were saying, the stereotypes of Arab people.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't know them, you believe these things. You know.
Yes. What's really cool is that like just like learning so much about like you know, the history and the people and their values. The food is amazing. Also, there's so many people of color here too. I mean, a lot of people have moved recently to Nashville because there's been this influx of people coming in from the coasts because Nashville's a little bit cheaper to live in. Mm-hmm. So I found like a lot of really great community too here. A lot of them are from California, like Southern California, from my same area.
Nice.
The founder of our AAPI Middle Tennessee chapter is from my rival high school. So that was just a coincidence. And he's Filipino. So
yeah. And you grew up in Cerritos, right?
Yeah, I actually grew up in Lakewood, but I which is like a more modest area of that area. But I went to Cerritos High School because I used a fake address so that I could get into that school.
As one does.
As one does.
As one does, to get into the better school.
Yes.
Same. Okay.
And I feel like still guilty, like admitting that, like, oh no, they're gonna find out and like fire me or something.
Everyone does that, like cousins, and you hear neighbors like, oh, I use my friend's address to get my kid into this school.
Absolutely.
It's things you have to do to give your kids better opportunities. Okay. And can you tell us about any Egyptian or Arab artists you like?
Yeah. Sorry, what was the last thing you said?
I said any type of media, like all types.
Yeah. So I have I was just in the Middle East for the Emirates Literature Festival. And I got to meet some really, really cool artists there, really dynamic artists. I met so many Arab Filipinos.
Ooh, okay.
But they're who live in the Gulf.
Mm-hmm.
But their area of concern that really moves them isn't about obviously the issues that they care about are different from the issues here in the United States. The
Mm-hmm.
issues that they care about are more about like labor rights, because Filipinos are often the labor class working in the Emirates and the Gulf area, so they're really treated less, paid less, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have as many rights, and they have to minimize their Filipino side because they live in an Arab dominated place. So they
Yeah.
have a totally different set of like issues they care about, far away from like the things that I'm talking about in my book.
Yeah.
But an artist I will tell you about, just two people. One, I want you to follow at Noor, and I'm going to spell it. Actually, I can't join the chat because it tells me, but it's like at NOURELMASSRY at Noor El Masri on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find it and share it. He shares these beautiful images of Cairo, just like drop dead gorgeous photography in Cairo.
Mm-hmm.
And it really shows the beauty of the Middle East. And then the second person I would recommend is the graphic novelist Dina Muhammad. She wrote one of the best satires of like Egyptian society, which is a dangerous thing to do in a military dictatorship ruled country. But she wrote a satire that is like about like a sci-fi story about genies and wishes, and the politicization of that, called Shubeik Lubeik. I'm sure you can find it. Dina Muhammad and Noor El Masri.
We will look for it and add it to our collection.
Steve, get on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I follow Habibi Funk, and I've found a lot of really cool Arab funk and soul.
Yvette, I wish we lived in the same city because we would hang out. Like I
genuinely believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Friends.
Alrighty. And another question, what does the American dream mean to you, or does the term feel outdated?
No, everyone has a dream. Everyone has an American dream. I think that, I would love to know yours. Tell me yours and I'll tell you mine.
Oh my God. Wow, you put me on the spot. I feel that as the daughter of immigrants and parents who came to the US not speaking a predominant language, I feel like my American dream is to give my parents a life with dignity, be able to like provide for them in the future, that, be able to, provide for my family, just do what they've done for me.
I love that so much. Yes, I think that's a really good answer. I think that I think that my American dream it's kind of a little bit different from yours, in that like I just want to be able to like take care of myself and not be a burden to my family, because so many, growing up as the kind of like the poor, my mom didn't make as much money as her other siblings. We were always asking for money from my aunts and uncles and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I never wanted to have to do that, beg for money, essentially, like from family members. I always wanted to just be able to take care of myself and have a life where I could order anything I want from the menu, or, if I wanted to, buy a dress that I liked, I could buy it without having to worry about, money and things like that. So,
yeah, of course.
So security, and also like this sense of like getting to just like be myself. Like I was insecure for so long, so long.
Mm-hmm.
And just being able to like be comfortable with myself and like my things that I like. Maybe that comes with age.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost 40, which is really weird. I don't even think I look 40, but like I just like think that maybe part of it is just like growing older and wiser or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful too. Thank you for sharing that. And are you working on another graphic novel or a project currently?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you for asking me this question. I'm working on a movie.
Wait, are you making the book into a movie?
Sort of. It's called Posers. That's the
Okay.
working title. I'm writing a screenplay.
Mhm.
And I'm co-writing it with a Filipino Canadian filmmaker in Canada.
Mhm.
And it's about a Filipino American teen growing up in 2002 in a a predominantly Asian Latino suburb of Southern California.
Mhm.
And it's a coming of age story. It's a comedy. And it's about her relationships with a rocky relationship with her mom, her uncle who she lives with, her like she's like so caught up in this idea of like wanting to get into this group called Punk White Group in her high school. And her friend Howard isn't secretly in love with her. He's a Taiwanese goth guy, based on a friend that I had in high school.
Mhm.
And it's been so much fun to work on. And I think maybe I've told you too much about the film, but whatever.
I am so excited for that.
Yeah.
I better get invited to the premiere.
Oh my gosh. Yvette Cabrera.
Okay. And I want to end with you sharing the last few pages of your book because I was crying so much when I read those. So let's see if we can pull that up.
Okay. 77. Okay. Already. All right. A couple of years after Darren and I got married, we went to Egypt for the very first time. I'm bugging out, homie. I can't believe we're going to Egypt. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd come here with a husband. Me, age 11. Dad, Egypt is so boring. Why can't I ever spend a normal summer at space camp or something? I remember Dad had this funny expression about the future. Try to enjoy it, Brownie, because tomorrow you'll be married and you won't come to Egypt as often. No, Dad, tomorrow I'll still be 11. And even if I'm married, I'll see you all the time. But Dad was right, because that memory only felt like yesterday. And here I was today, floating down the Nile River with Darren. I still can't believe we're here. Well, you know what they say, honey, denial ain't just a river in Egypt. Oh boy. Tomorrow, I knew we'd be back here with our children. I probably won't be able to translate Arabic for them or understand the local customs, but they'll be able to feel the sun on their face and the wind in their hair. And they'll know someday, somehow, that all of this is a part of them too.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Thank you. I remember like struggling through these last pages. Like I had to go, I was like so stressed because I couldn't figure out like how will I end this book? And so I went on this really, really, really long walk around my neighborhood in DC. And I was like, aha, I've got it. Like, I'll just end it this way. And then of course I cried because like it was very emotional for me. And so I always think that if you're crying when you're writing, you've hit a nerve and your reader will probably cry too.
Yeah. And I love, it's a beautiful segue into your next book. I was, what's it called? It Won't Always Be Like This.
Yeah.
So I love that book too, because it really isn't like you're never getting those summers back. And you, like you said earlier, like you're like, oh, I don't want to go back. And now you're like dying to spend a whole, just to have a summer off, first of all, and then just have that summer back home with grandparents. That would be incredible.
So nice. So nice.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see if we have any questions from any of questions. Send your questions. Okay.
Okay.
Alrighty. I'm not seeing any. So I guess.
You asked me what my favorite color is.
What are you listening to right now?
Oh my gosh, what am I listening? Ugh, don't ask a new mom that. Ugh. I'm listening to like the Moana soundtrack. Okay. So, and then I'm only listening to throwback. So like I've been really into Nickelback lately, very ironically, like very ironically listening to throwbacks like Nickelback. So
Ironically.
yeah, that's true. I actually cried listening to one of the lyrics for like it was like, I'm not a perfect person. You know that song? What is that song?
I don't know, but I can sing it.
Is it like Stained or something? I don't know. It's not Stained. Anyway, like I was like thinking about that song as an adult, and I was like, oh my god, it's so beautiful.
Okay, we have some questions.
Okay.
Okay, we have a question from Christina. Hi, Christina. What continues to drive your curiosity in your art?
That's a great question, Christina. Wow. I think that sometimes you have these seasons in your life where like you're driven by a single question that's like it's prompting you to like find the answer. So like in 2016, I think the predominant question for me was like, what is my relationship with my identity? I had never thought about that before. So like all of my art was like singularly focused on like trying to answer that question in various ways. Like, am I ashamed? Am I ashamed about being Filipino? Why am I ashamed? Am I proud of being Egyptian? Why do I feel proud? Like, you know, so sort of like that helped drive it. So like now, I guess reason. Thank you, Francesca Waterhouse by Hoobastank. Perfect. I knew we had some fans here. It's a beautiful song. So, anyways, the reason. But so currently, I think the thing that's driving my art is that this is like a really cheesy answer, but like I have a newsletter called A List of Beautiful Things.
I love it. I love that newsletter, and you took forever to give us the last one.
I know. I don't know what I was. Oh, you know what? It was a lot of things happened. I got canceled briefly, and then I came back.
I love that list. I'm always clicking on all the links and learning new things. I love it.
But I think what drives me is that like sometimes the world can feel you have to go out of your way to intentionally find beauty. If you want your life to be beautiful, you have to surround yourself by beautiful things.
Mm-hmm.
And and it doesn't come naturally. You have to like seek it. You have to seek beauty everywhere so that your own life could have that beauty. So that's what I've been really interested in the past couple of years. My own free time, I try to like purposefully find movies, films, books, quotes, poems, art, comics that just like stir something in me. So that's been my like thing lately.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And we have Amanda, one of our librarians here in Teenscape, and they're having a watch party for the
Amanda, thank you so much for having a watch party. This is so great.
What do you love about graphic nonfiction, and what are some of your favorite or inspirational graphic memoirs?
Yes. So what I love about graphic nonfiction is that like you're kind of like it's kind of like a cartoon like narrating everything that's happening. So like you can use like your catchphrases, like you can use like parts of your body or like your body language to like explain how you feel. Like instead of being like, and then she hated that they were eating peas and mashed potatoes for dinner, you could just have her go like, ah, and then like have a little bubble that goes like, that's so gross. You know, it feels like more dynamic and energetic to me. Although like not all graphic nonfiction is like that. Like I'm not talking about Mouse, which is not this tone at all. But for my purposes, that's what I really love about it is that you really have like a cartoon character like navigating the story with you, like a little avatar that just bounces on from page to page. And the second part of that question was like, what is some of my favorite graphic nonfiction?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I have to tell you about one that I just read called Past Tense by Sasha Mardeau.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming out. It's this British woman who lives in the United States who like at the age of 40 decides to go to therapy for the first time to unpack some of her childhood trauma. And oh my gosh, like it like changed my brain chemistry and inspired me to like start working on like my childhood trauma with my therapist, which is like, why did I never do that before? But like this book like convinced me. So it's so good. Sasha Mardeau, Past Tense.
Great. Okay, and I think we're gonna wrap up. Malaka, thank you so much for writing this book that invites people with intricate backgrounds to feel seen and to feel less alone. Like you said, as a teen, all you want to do is fit in, and then you realize that all of those things that like made you feel left out are what makes you extra special. So thank you so much for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you. And you did such a wonderful interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you all for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this Your Author program, and remember to visit lapl.org/events to see more of our amazing programs. You can check the Your Author landing page at lapl.org/yourauthor for our next Your Author program. We truly appreciate your support. The success of all of our library programs could not happen without viewers like you, so thank you so much.